What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another Sci'D Geeks podcast. J-Mo.
Sci'D Geeks podcast.
Sci'D Geeks. But today is sad geeks because it has come to an end, bro. It has come to an end. Look for the light.
I'll be honest with you, an ending that seemed very familiar.
Yes.
After praising Druckmann and Mason for all their work on adding more content, I wanted more content.
Yeah, very interesting. And just before we get into it, we will be talking spoilers, ladies and gentlemen.
Extreme
spoilers today because we gotta break out the game. We'll try to keep it light on part 2 of the game. I haven't played part 2 of the game. J-Mo has, but we'll keep it light. We'll throw out theories that have nothing to do with part 2, so we don't spoil anything. I haven't played it. I've just known, when you're doing the show and doing the research, you come across spoilers, right? So hopefully, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably like us, always like looking up shit or whatever. So you're probably have the same amount of knowledge that we have, or at least that I have, because J-Mo, I know you've played part 2 of the game. But let's get into it. You have been warned. We're going to be talking spoilers.
And also, let me warn you that we will talk about season 2, not part 2 of the game, but what we think season 2 is going to go into.
Hell yeah. So look for the light. So break it down for me, man. Like you just blew my mind before the podcast. So let it rip.
I mean, what was nice about this episode called Look for the Light, it harped on something that the Firefly's motto stands for. So if you think about it, we saw it in episode 1. Mind you, episode 1 was called When Lost in the Darkness. There was a scene where Joel looks at the wall, a brick wall, and it literally says, "When lost in the darkness, look for the light." So episode 1, When Lost in the Darkness. Episode 9, Look for the Light. And I just found that to be very clever.
Wow.
I mean, I was like, hey, look at you guys getting creative.
It's interesting, man, and I'd like people to definitely comment, right? I'll try to do this, break down some of the podcast items in our TikTok. Please feel free to go to our TikTok and show some love. But I do want to break down some clips, and I hope that people comment their theories, man, because and Easter eggs, because just like this that you broke down to me, I completely forgot about that. Right. And I think this show is full of that stuff, like hidden messages and, not subliminal, but hidden messages that you just got to look for, little things like this that connect episode 1 to last episode. So if you guys see anything, please comment, because I go full Sci'D Geek whenever I talk about this shit. But
the thing I wanted to add with this episode is the fact that there was, throughout every single one of these ones that we've looked back and looked, we've compared the show to the game. This was one episode that mimicked the game the most.
Yeah.
Especially after the flashback scene that starts us off.
Yeah. Yeah. So it very and we'll get to it, but very, like you were saying, even the dialogue and the way it looked. And one thing I can tell you is, and I was thinking about this while watching it for the second time, that even though I think for us that play the game and we're expecting a little more, I thought it was still good to give everybody that will never pick up a PlayStation controller, right? Because there's people that I absolutely will not pick up a PlayStation controller to play, and they're just not that type of people. So I'm glad that they did it that way so that they could experience it. Because the game experience, man, and especially that ending, right? It definitely keeps you thinking for a while, because there's a moral dilemma.
I mean, it
both
asks the
ways, right?
question.
So
It asks the question what you would do in that position,
exactly.
and then I think it's the perfect question to ask. You'd get parents looking at it one way, and I would assume non-parents looking at it a different way.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I could be wrong, but I mean, it asks a great question on what you would do.
It is. It is. And we'll get into it, but I just wanted to throw that out there that I think at first or yesterday I felt the same way. Like, man, like it was too identical, right? And
Mhm.
we'll talk about the introduction of the show because I was like, that was my first comment in the chat yesterday. Whoa,
Yeah.
like that was different, and I'm glad that they did that. But then everything else, after the first like 5-10 minutes of the show of the episode, it was like everything was the same, and I felt like you yesterday, but today I'm like, you know what, I'm glad that like someone like my wife and my younger kid and my stuff, like they were able to see that
Mhm.
what we had in the game without having to like battle all kinds of zombies or anything like that. um but just overall thoughts, you thought it could have had a little bit more, a little bit something.
The only thing I was looking for more, it wasn't how the episode ended where I wanted more. I wanted the beginning to be a little bit more.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to see more of Ellie's mom story. I wanted to know
Mhm.
more about Anna. I didn't want it to start off already in turmoil type of situation, or I wanted to see like something hopeful and bright,
Yeah,
because the way we start off the scene is, it's we meet a pregnant Anna.
yeah.
I wanted to see more of the sunlight before the darkness in her life.
Yeah. So yeah, makes perfect sense. And yeah, so we start with the opening scene with Anna running through the woods pregnant. So
Mhm.
big call out right here, because we did a call out last week. The biggest Easter egg so far, which was what's his name, Baker.
Troy Baker.
Troy Baker. And this time for the season finale, they saved our good old Ashley Johnson, who, if you didn't
Yeah.
know, plays or is the voice actor, and actual actor for Ellie's character in the video game. And I gotta
Mhm.
tell you, man, even though it was a short performance,
Yeah.
it was a very fucking good performance, man. I didn't know she
On,
had it in
on,
her.
Honestly, all these people that were given these one-off characters that lasted maybe an episode or even a moment, I think every single one of them did a great job with Frank and Bill, with who was the weird lady in the one QZ that had lost her mind
Oh,
because she
Kathleen.
was looking.
Yeah,
Kathleen, that
Kathleen.
actress that played Kathleen was amazing. Ashley Johnson. I mean, I think she set the scene perfectly. Like the
Yeah,
suspenseful scene, the way it is,
yeah.
she knocked it out the fucking park.
Her facial emotions and her facial expressions were on point. And a small comment that came up while watching the show yesterday, and that someone said, "Oh, I said, hey, that's Ashley Johnson. She voices Ellie." And I can't remember. Someone said, "Oh, I didn't know that she could act too." And just for people that don't know, right? Like, I think when we say voice actors for a video game, you're thinking, like how they do it for a cartoon or whatever, or an animated show where they just go in and do the voiceovers. But no, these guys are actually acting the scenes because they're in those light bulb suits,
Mocap,
right? Yeah, those motion.
caption.
Yep.
So I
And
mean, you got to look at it more as how the Hulk was portrayed in all the Marvel movies.
yeah,
That's Mark Ruffalo doing all the scenes, moving all the movements. They're just using the mocaption suit to bring that character to life, similar to how they did the video games here for Last of Us.
exactly. So all the acting that happens in the video game is true, very true, to the
Mhm.
actual actors. And man, Ashley Johnson knocked that out the park. I gotta tell you that. One thing that, so of course, she runs into this like abandoned house in the middle of nowhere. Um,
Well, I mean, the scene opens up with her just in a frantic state.
yeah,
Now you see her running. You can see how pregnant she is. You can tell she is 9.5 months pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the baby's coming. And all of a sudden you hear in the background that notorious squeal of a runner. We're not even at clicker form. These are full sprinting runners.
Yeah, yeah. It was the setup was interesting, right? Because at this point, because my first reaction is like, what is she running from? And I heard the infected chasing her, right?
Yeah.
But how did we get there, right? And then the other thing is that you don't see anything, right? It's just her running. There's actually
Right.
a wide shot, beautiful shot. And by the way, the cinematography on this episode was on point. But there's a beautiful shot where she's running, and you can see like the whole thing, her running towards the house, nothing
Yeah.
else around her, right? We know now, right, that
I'll be honest with you. I thought for sure as she's leaving the forest on the field, by the time she leaves the shot showing her she's getting closer to the house, we would see at least some whatever's chasing her at that point.
yeah.
But we didn't see anything.
We didn't see anything. And, after thinking about it, we know now that, she's probably stepping on cordyceps that are leading, whatever infected to her. It's just weird that it's just one, right? It contradicts a little bit the theme of like, if you're isolated, they probably won't look for you. But we don't know what happened or where she's coming from or anything, right? But it was very horror movie like it had that little feel of the chasing, and she lights herself up, and of course the infected arrives and she kills it. So break down that scene, man. Like what did you take away from there? Because this is where Ellie is born, right?
Well, the biggest thing I took away from it is they used the whole theory that we brought, I think, a couple episodes, the last episode, where we were saying that it's going to be a Blade similar story where as the infected is breaking through that door, you can hear the franticness of the infected trying to slam through that door as Anna's sitting there. And Anna's, she finds her knife, she gets ready, but another contraction hits where she had to put the knife down for a brief second. In that brief second, the infected breaks through the door, comes racing, charging at her. Now you see a frantic back and forth. You think Anna has her at least at a good arm's length away, trying to pick up her knife, stab her away. Come to find out, right after she kills her, you hear a baby cry.
Yeah.
As she sees, she's in awe that her beautiful daughter is being born. She realizes her thigh's been bitten, and that's when you're like, "Holy shit!" Now, we know from the Blade movies, that's how he gets his power, where a vampire bites his mom while she's about to give birth to him, and that's why he gets all his powers. And similar to that, this is where Ellie gets her immunity from. And it shows it as, it's not a quick reaction to cut the umbilical cord. Or so from the time she gets bit, there's a good chance some sort of cordyceps infection is entering the bloodstream. And as we know with umbilical cord blood, it's the cure-all, end-all for everything.
Yeah.
So going through that whole process gives us kind of the reasoning where Ellie is immune to all this.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught this, right? Because like the assumption is, and it's funny because she tells Marlene like, I cut her before getting bit, and we know that that's not
She's
the
lying.
case. But the other thing is that she stabs the shit out of the infected, right? And then with the same knife, she cuts the cord. And I was thinking about that, like, okay, so if for some reason, right, and I think they did that on purpose, right? Because if for some reason, let's say that within those 30 seconds that you noticed and you cut the cord, the fungi hadn't reached the baby, then now you just cut it, with the knife that is like has fresh fungi blood.
Right.
And
could you imagine if she did the opposite and just used her teeth to
Right.
Even that,
Right.
even if she used her teeth, she's infected now. So even using her teeth, has her reached to that point?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's awesome that they wrote that in there because they didn't leave a stone unturned, right? So in case you're thinking, oh, but the sign says that you have to wait 2 hours. No, man, like she cut the umbilical, like she had no choice, right? But
It was. I mean, if we're going by your theory, she had no time. That whole time frame is thrown out.
right,
I mean, you just went from cord to baby right
baby.
away.
It's like, did you want to like fucking feed her of the zombie's teeth? Anyway, so another observation that I thought it was cool before we talk about the Marlene and Amy dialogue is that they used a real newborn, man, and
Dude.
and this is for TV shows or movies, that's rare.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Just seeing the baby on the floor, I was like, huh. Who the hell let their baby be laid on the floor like that, completely naked?
Yeah,
In schmutz, all this schmutz around them, and then she picks up the baby. Mind you, I am not a parent. Whoever's had a baby obviously knows, cradle the head, make sure the neck's okay. But she just picks up the baby from the armpits and just holds him or her in front of him. And I was like, okay, what about the baby's head? Is it gonna fall off?
Yeah, man. It's and I was trying to pull it up right now to see if I can show a shot, but it's nuts because, and at first, I thought like, could it be CGI? I'm like, is that because normally, right, when there's a baby scene in any movie or whatever, it's like, oh, wah, wah, and then all of a sudden, like the next shot is a big ass baby, like a big ass 18-month, right?
Yeah.
And all fat and whatever. So this one, I'm like, man, it looks too legit, like too legit. So I'm like, I'm thinking it's CGI, but no, it was a real newborn. So I thought kudos for that, to going the extra step to making it look real. But then Marlene and her boys show up. At first, I had a feel of like, man, were these motherfuckers after Anna? Like
Right.
they seemed like they were going with a mission, but no. We don't know, right? Really.
You know what threw me off is, when Anna first gets in the house, she yells for people. To me, that house looked condemned, looked like nobody was using it as a bunker or as a fort of some site. But Marlene showing up, when my first take with Marlene coming in, I'm like, oh, she's infected. Or to the point where I'm hoping I see her isolate herself away from the baby, but then you hear music in the background. And like you hear Anna singing to the baby.
Yeah. An interesting part was that as soon as Marlene goes or opens the door, Anna had a knife to her neck. Anna had the knife to her neck. I don't know if you noticed that. And what was happening there, man? Because
I don't know the theory behind it. I mean, so you're telling me you're about to kill yourself and leave your helpless baby just to defend itself?
Yeah, because it was like super last minute. And I guess, like the only logical explanation I had is, okay, so if no one's coming, the moment I feel like any type of twitching or me not being myself again, I'm just going to kill myself and hopefully buy the baby a little bit more time for somebody to show. Shot in the dark, right?
Yeah.
For other Survivor fans out there. But shot in the dark. And, so Marlene showed up on time and Anna basically says, hey, we've been together Marlene didn't want to, but she's like, we've been together all our lives. Take this baby and make sure this baby is okay. And asks Marlene to kill her, right?
Right. From the notes I got is like, Anna is a nurse, prior or in the she's a nurse part of the Fedra system.
Okay.
She's known Marlene all her life. So I want to know more. See, that's the thing. I was hoping to get some of the light before we got all this craziness.
Yeah.
Like showing you know, how her and Marlene are, and then have a quick cut scene to her running through the forest, like having this peaceful situation, then immediately go to drastic running into the forest. That's the only thing I was looking forward to.
Yeah, and then like the other thing that I wanted to ask you is on that scene is like, why not? So she's like, hey, like take the baby and kill me, and then she's like, I can't do that, and then she comes back and smokes her, right? But what, like, why not? What would you do in that situation? Wouldn't you just give her a gun so that she can do it herself? Like, what's the logic behind there?
I mean, I think the only logic it shows is how far Marlene would go for someone. Now, it's a bit of a contrast to what we see later in the episode. So I think that's why they left that in there, just to show the difference between the two.
Yeah, and I mean, and I get the scene, right? They were setting us up for the end when Marlene makes the decision she makes at the end, to kind of give that, like you were saying, that how related or how close she really is to Ellie, right? Because if because there's a part at the end when she's like, man, like if anybody understands, it's me. So I am glad that they put this part in the episode because it does make it a little bit more real to her.
What I want to ask you is this. Okay, so we get this whole speech from Anna and Marlene on each other forever. But when you go back to episode 1, you get this cold feeling between Marlene and Ellie, like she just met her.
Yeah,
like she was almost like she was, this incident happened. She got bit on the arm. She was brought to Marlene after being bit. They held her in a room for God knows how many days or a week. But you don't get any closeness between the two. You would think she would share stories of her mom. Yeah, your mom was the same way. You're just like your mom, something to that effect.
Yeah.
But, in episode 1, you don't get that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just the type of person Marlene is. Like if I have to put some type of context around that, because you're right, because she wasn't very warm and fuzzy with Anna, right? When, she was just like, I can't do that. And then she just kind of snaps back in the room and just kills her or whatever. But, and maybe that's it, right? However, we have to keep in mind that knowing what she knew, she didn't know that, whether Anna got bit before or after having the baby or cutting that umbilical cord or whatever, right? So she's always in the back of her head. But the only difference now is that Ellie has a bite on her arm, right? So she has to be careful, just like with anybody else, right? If you get bit, it's over for you. But yes, I guess her only way, her warmth came in the name of keeping her alive, right?
My thing is this. Okay, so you kind of saw at least somewhat of a relationship between the two. Maybe all their lives they've been tough with each other between Anna and Marlene. But then you also saw Marlene have a soft side saying, I can't kill you. Now, obviously she went through with it. She bit the bullet. And
no pun intended.
The one thing that was also funny was when she hands the baby to the guy, she goes, cover the baby's ears. This idiot never covers the baby's ears. And she just blasts away. And that, I mean, for a newborn, that's a fucking loud ass noise.
Hell yeah. Geez. Yeah, that's I didn't think about that, but yeah, you can see the baby like twitch or whatnot, which makes you think like, what did they do to that baby, right, to make it get all scared. But that's it. So the shot happens, and then we fast forward to Ellie and Joel. There's a close up of Ellie, and right away you can tell that she's distraught or just separated from reality, right? Like Joel's talking to her in the background, she's not even listening. And
she's kind of in a trance.
Yeah.
You look at her eyes, but she's there, but she's not there.
So it's, and obviously since last episode, right, a very traumatic experience. So, it makes a little sense. But do you think that was the reason, or is she thinking about what happened in last episode, or is she thinking what is going to happen in the future? Obviously, she doesn't know, but
no, I think with her, it's mostly about what happened in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're on the brink of either rape, death, God knows what, dismemberment, being eaten, all these dramatic things that are running through your head keep overplaying in her head constantly. So from the time that they leave David in that camp and those weird people to the point where they're on the doorsteps of Salt Lake City in this hospital, there's probably a good couple of days where she's just walking around reliving that moment in her life constantly. And you know how every human is. We're making every matter worse than it could be. And that matter was bad. That was really bad. So like we make matters even worse in the head when we just think about them.
Yeah. And I thought it was an interesting, and I don't know if they did this on purpose or not, right? But I was just thinking, man, like throughout all of what she's lived in the past, 8 episodes plus, right? Because even one of those episodes was even a flashback with Riley or whatever. She became Joel, or the Joel that we saw at the beginning of or throughout the season, right? Like she became that dark person who's not smiling anymore, who's just like in a very dark place all the time. While on the other hand, we see Joel become the cheer. He has Ellie now, like he has someone that he loves, someone he has a reason to live, and then we see a complete 180 from him too.
I think the biggest thing about these two's relationship, they don't let the other person either dwell in too much darkness or get too high on themselves. And I think you see this apparent now in this episode where, like you said, roles are reversed.
Yeah.
She's in doom and gloom like Joel's been for the first 8 episodes. And now Joel is like happy-go-lucky, wants to talk about Chef Boyardee and Boggle, and talks about what he wants to do and opens up about his daughter and God knows what else. As we start breaking,
show Ellie how to play the guitar.
I mean, that was a nice call back to the game where he comes across a broken guitar and he just goes through, "Yay, we'll find a nice one and I'm going to show you how to play it."
Yeah, that was cool. Another really cool thing, and I don't know if you picked this up, right? But when he's putting the cans of Chef Boyardee away, it was like straight up audio from like the video game. He's like, there's this thing where he puts the backpack down and he's like unzipping it and putting stuff in.
Yeah.
And then putting it back on is like the whole audio. I was like, oh my God, this is so satisfying.
I mean, the only thing that they did slightly different is how much he opened up about taking the gun to himself.
Yes.
I mean, you never got that content in the game. Not that I remember.
No. I don't think we even saw that. They talked about that scar at all. But, let's talk about that scene, I guess. I don't know. Wait, are we jumping ahead? Well, it doesn't matter. But
no, it's right there. It's literally right after they get. It's right before they get to. Oh no, I'm sorry. We did jump a little bit because we skipped the area where they come across the giraffes.
Yeah. So, but we could talk about it. I mean, I think it's very important that, man, he's an open book. He's just becoming an open book, and
I mean, he doesn't want to shut up anymore.
No, it's nuts, and the whole that whole scene where he's opening up, right, and that culminates in him saying, that basically Ellie's the one that changed him now, right? Like, it was pretty great, and I think at that point, Ellie's still kind of, I don't know if she got it fully right, but because she just kind of says, "Well, I'm glad it didn't, like it didn't work or something."
These are two people that just don't flat out say I love you.
Yeah.
So they have to find their way of saying I love you without using those three words.
Yeah.
What you have in these two, and I think she picked up exactly. It was an alley oop, and she dunked it. That's pretty much what it was,
Yeah.
because he stated to her, time doesn't heal. Time didn't heal my wounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he looked at her. He pretty much saying it was you that healed my
Yeah. He
wounds.
said it wasn't time, so
Right.
looking at her. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty powerful. And that's, again, like something that confirms like this guy is like 100% invested in Ellie. So very, very important moment, right?
And I think one thing that I don't want to skip is regarding that scene with the giraffes. Like, he kind of like tells her, we don't got to go through with this.
Mhm.
They had a brief moment while feeding the giraffes and walking away, trying to find a way in,
Mhm.
that, we can forget about all this.
Yeah,
We can
which,
just
by the
go
way,
back.
that part was awesome. The ladder, right? Because he's like, that's straight up the game. Like, hey, come here, let me give you a lift. And she goes, and how many times do they do this in the video game where he pushes her up somewhere and she brings a ladder, right? Like all the
Right.
freaking time. And I was like, yes, I like that. But yeah, he proposes, right? To, hey, you know what? Let's forget about all this. Let's go back home. And I think home at this point is with Tommy. And, Ellie responds something to the effect of like, no, like I want to see this through, right?
She pretty much tells him, what was all this for then?
Mhm.
I mean, we've done some really bad things. I need something in my life that has a purpose for all the actions I've done.
Yeah.
I've killed friends, I've killed innocents, I've killed God knows who else. I mean, yes, they were being attacked most of the time,
Mhm.
but some of the infected didn't know what they were doing. And behind those eyes are innocent people.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful, man. And the acting too by Bella Ramsey, spot on
Mhm.
too, right here. By the way, during the giraffe scene, that's also from the video game, and I think in the video game this happens way, way, way earlier.
Mm.
I think when they're just leaving Pittsburgh or something like that. But I'm glad they put it in there because it was a beautiful scene. But just a funny observation. There's a part where they're looking over, like they go all the way to the roof, I think, and they're looking over, and Joel is leaning on like the concrete thing, and some people are actually like taking measurements because his thumb, dude, is like completely bent, like 90 degrees. So
Really?
yeah, it's so weird, and
I didn't notice that.
I'll try to put a shot on the podcast, but it was obviously I didn't notice anything like that, but there's a trend on TikTok where like people are like putting rulers or whatever, and it's like, oh my god, this dude's fingers are like completely crazy. So yeah, don't play Mortal Kombat with him because he's probably a beast. But anyway, so they keep going, right? They make
Yeah.
it to the ER camps. That's when he kind of opens up about his thing, and then some shitty puns, and then flashbang.
I mean, let's not get to that point yet. The fact that he actually requested shitty puns
Yes.
right after they had that nice, soulful, heart to heart situation, he goes, "You know what? Let's go shitty puns time."
Like, you know what I feel like? Right.
And after that conversation, you see her more focused on the now than dwelling on what just happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And then here comes like the biggest, I guess the biggest difference from game to show is how a flash grenade knocks them both unconscious. She gets taken, he's knocked out. Whereas for the game, it was more of a situation where Ellie can't swim. She nearly drowns. he rescues, they get rescued, but Joel's unconscious too because he's been, underwater for way too long as well.
Yeah. Well, no. So in both situations, so Ellie's like drowning or whatever. He gets her out, but the guy hits him with his gun.
That's right, with the butt of the gun.
With the butt of the gun, and he hits him in this one too after because the flashbang did him knock him out unconscious. He falls. He grabs Ellie. They fall. And the moment he looks up, he's like whack, and everything goes white.
Yeah, you're right.
Where I think Ellie was conscious in this one, but she wasn't in the game. Anyway, so he wakes up in the hospital, and we have some dialogue with Marlene over here that again, I feel like super important, right? She starts explaining right away, right, that the chemical that is produced in Ellie's brain, right, kind of makes
blocking.
So it kind of makes the other cordyceps think it's normal, right, or it's like a normal cordyceps or whatever. So she won't turn, right, and this is what they can extract this chemical to make a vaccine or whatever cure. They don't call it a vaccine, but they call it a cure. And then of course Joel reacts with isn't on the cordyceps in the brain, like, and just Marlene kind of hints at the situation, like, yeah, like it's over. She won't feel any pain. She doesn't even know, right?
Let me ask you this: is this how you wanted these scenes to play out in comparison to the game?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I mean that scene is very similar, right? Because he wakes up asking for Ellie in the game. And
but he doesn't get the whole speech right away.
I thought he did. Like, I thought there is a Marlene and Joel scene in the game where they're in his room in his hospital.
There is. He gets a brief stint of what she says, and then if you remember, as we're going through in the game, you're going through different offices. You're finding tape recorders. That explain more into it. So you have Marlene on a tape recorder kind of confessing her whole how she really feels about everything. Then you have the doctor's tape recorder kind of going into it. I wish we had as I would have loved to have seen this. Joel's still kind of like waking up out of a haze. In that haze, you can hear Marlene and the doctor talking. Those conversations between her and the doctor are what's on the recorder. That's what I rather would have. And then that would have extended the episode just a little bit. Because remember, this episode is only 43 minutes long. We've had episode 1 being an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be longer. It definitely felt
right. Me too. So like, I thought if he was like waking up out of this haze, he's hearing this conversation and he's kind of picking up on things. Then that's when he kind of slowly gets more and more enraged. And Marlene then explains to him, hey, here's what's going on. Yeah. So that's where they could have added more content.
Yeah. And I think that, and it's interesting how that happens, right? Because Marlene knows the type of man Joel is. I mean, she's quite shocked too that they made it this far, but then she's like, oh shit, like Joel made it happen because he's a fucking savage. And she explains to him, like, yeah, this is what's got to happen because, like, what's it to Joel, right? He's a freaking murderer. What's it to Joel if Ellie, if she doesn't know that Joel has grown to love Ellie, right? And she explains it, a little bit with a little care, sort of, but it is what it is, right? And however, that part where Joe's like, you don't understand. And she was like, man, if anybody understands, it's me. Going back to that first part, right? Like, we know that she understands, right?
Right.
It's just a different point of view.
I have a but with that. I think she says those words, but she doesn't mean them. I think Marlene doesn't mean them because Joe is using personal reasons on what he decides later, right? I think Marlene is exactly like Joel, where she's using personal reasons to exempt her for killing Ellie's mom. Like, she has this guilt inside her for literally killing her best friend, leaving this kid orphaned that she's got to take care of. So it's all got to mean something. It can't be for nothing. So she has her own personal reasons. Yes, it's for the greater good, but I don't think Marlene sees it that way. I think she sees it as, this is my way of vindication for what I did earlier in my life.
Right. To save the world too, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, when you look at it from the outside, it's a no-brainer, right? But like what all these 9 episodes have showed us is, this love that this man has developed for this little girl, that he's not gonna let that shit happen, right? And we see that. Now I gotta tell you, this part I like more in the game, when he, I think, pulls one of I think he kills one of the guards, and then the other one, he asks, where is she? And he's about to hesitate, and he's like, fuck it, and he shoots him. Where is she? And then he shoots him again. Like, man, like, Joel goes beast mode, and he does here too.
Yeah.
I just I would have liked for them to do that particular scene. But it's interesting how you hear on the radio, like, we hear shots, and that's how you hear the guys talking in the background in the game, right? I gotta tell you though that I am glad that they didn't rush through that. I mean, that they did have him, do that hospital scene where he's killing fireflies, because that's a big part before getting to the operating room.
See, like, the only difference I would want is, how in the game you go through and you maul a bunch of people. Mind you, I loved the fact that they didn't hide how crazy Joel is, how much he loves Ellie and will do anything.
Yeah.
Especially with the guy that puts his gun down and says, "I give up." He literally just said, "Fuck you," and
she just looked at him.
Now, as he's going through everybody in the game, you get that long corridor scene. We have all those windows on the side, and on the right is the doctor's office, and you go to another office before we get to the operating table. I would have loved to see like a long shot of, and then the camera kind of like narrowing in on the operating door, and he's walking through. He's just racing over there. I would have loved to seen that, kind of like to a point where it's like, I'm trying to get there, but I can't get there fast enough. Right. That feeling.
Right.
And then he finally gets there and he sees the doctors. He sees her on the operating table.
Yeah, it was pretty, pretty similar, right? Obviously, they didn't go through all the details. I think I probably would have liked at some point for him to build a little nail explosive or something. That would have been cool.
Or a bat with nails in it so he can crack some skulls.
Hell yeah. But to your point, man, he's just cold. And it seems like he can turn it on and off now, right? Like, Ellie, it's on, I'm lovable, and then switch off the emotions when it's time to get it done, man. Because
he's literally going into beast mode.
Yeah, but he's not taking any risks, man. He's like, I'm not gonna let anybody live. Now, I do have a quick theory there about Ellie's knife, because it's shown a lot throughout the episode. In fact, not only when she was a baby, but in fact, when Marlene kind of tells the guards, and that was her mistake, right? He tells the guards, okay, take Joel out to the highway and give him this knife, kind of like as a souvenir or whatever. He uses that knife to fucking stab one of the guards. Now, I think that's going to come back, man. I think my theory here is that I think somehow that's how she's going to find out. A bloody knife or something, or like, how did you get this knife? Right. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but just it was bugging me, like how much they were showing this knife and like him killing one of the last soldiers with it. I'm like, man, this is probably going to come up at some point. Because
from my standpoint of what I know, I'm hoping it's not exactly like the game, and I'm hoping they take tidbits from this scene, like you're saying, to kind of like have everything unravel. You you need to play the game.
Yeah, I mean,
Like you really need to play the game.
yeah, I mean, Young Regal started playing it, and I've been sitting there watching. I missed a big chunk, but I'm getting the gist of it. I need to sit down. I started Fallout 4 again, so for some reason I don't know. I just started it, and
because you want to build fences.
yeah. But I definitely need to get back to The Last of Us Part 2. And somehow deep down inside, I kind of want to purposely wait a little bit because it's going to be a while since we will have season 2. So I'm like, maybe I should wait. Maybe this summer. I don't know.
You shouldn't wait. Here, and we'll go into it why later, why you shouldn't wait.
Okay.
When we start talking about what we predict for season 2.
Awesome. So Joel makes it to the operating room, smokes the doctor without fucking hesitation. I think he was going to wait, right?
He gave him a chance. He gave him a chance, and the doctor threatened him. He goes, "I will not let you take this girl." And he goes, "Motherfucker."
He's like, "All right," and then tells the other two, like, "All right, turn around, please." And they turn around and he takes her, right?
No, he looks at them and he goes, "Unhook her right now."
Yeah, unhook them.
And they don't say a word. They just unhook. And if the doctor just followed those procedures the way Joel wants them, he's alive.
Yes. I was thinking though all that time, I'm like, are they gonna make him run with Ellie, like carrying Ellie through like all the halls?
I was honestly, not knowing what the episode was gonna bring, I was hoping those gunshots in the beginning would have aroused some suspicion with regards to infected. You know, at least, and mind you, I was trying to pay attention, but like, I don't think I saw anything growing on the walls, but I would have liked to seen some infected come out of somewhere. Not like major bloaters, not the Rat King, but at least
something.
A runner, something.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Add a little bit more spice to the show. And then
Well, how about the cameo in that scene? Did you catch it?
Cameo.
So there was a cameo when after he shoots the doctor and he tells the nurses to release her. There was a cameo. There was a quick cameo.
From one of the nurses?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
so one of the nurses is the voice of Abby. Abby is a huge part of Last of Us Part 2.
Gotcha.
Abby is the daughter of the doctor.
Gotcha.
So I think they're gonna keep that situation the same. They might use a different actress, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that. I mean, I knew who Abby was. I just didn't know that was the voice actor. So that's awesome. Then I think we have the Marlene scene, right? At this point,
I like how they cut it because they cut it where he puts her in you see them in the car, and it flashes back as he's explaining to her what happened. Oh, there was other girls and other kids similar to you that are immune. They didn't need you. He pretty much explains, and then you get a cut to the parking lot scene and how they got a car.
Yeah, and then so they show Marlene and Joel, and then they cut to the car scene. Ellie asks, "What about Marlene? Or is Marlene okay?" And he just stays quiet, right? And he's like, "I'm taking us home." So he doesn't answer the question. And then we jump back to where he shoots Marlene. And then he comes back and executes her, right? Like he shoots her in the abdomen or whatever. She's down.
I mean, she begs him, just go. Just go. He goes, and then he literally says, "Yeah, if we go, you're going to come after us."
Yeah.
And without any hesitation.
Yeah.
He fucking just pops her in the head.
Yeah. It's interesting because like throughout, the years of watching so many movies and shows and everything, like all the dialogue that happens before someone kills somebody or not kills somebody, like there's a bunch of dialogue. Man, this guy is just like very short words and boom, like no
Yeah.
no hesitation. And then um there's some back and forth right there, right? Just to kind of elaborate a little bit more. Marlene has a good point, right? Like what are you doing, man? Like it's still not too late. We can still do this, right? And she puts her in perspective. It's like, you're old, you're gonna die eventually. Let's pretend that, let's play this out. You're gonna die. She's still alive. Now who's gonna protect her? So now either some raiders or infected, someone's gonna get to her. And then what? Like, it's the same ending, right? It's the same ending. She dies and
Everything he's doing is for selfish reasons. Let's be honest.
yeah.
But when you've been to the break of ending your own life because you can't live without your daughter anymore, and now you're reinvigorated with this new daughter in your life, you're going to make sure everything in your power that does not happen again to him.
Yeah.
So I understand why he did it. What I mean, like being put in that situation, I would never kill my kid.
Yeah.
I don't care what the results are. I don't care if you told me, your son or your daughter is the cure for cancer, but we got to kill your son to get the cure for cancer.
Yeah.
I'd be like, go fuck yourself. We're going to have cancer for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, it's very hard. And I think that just knowing, how it happened, right? Especially Marlene, right? Like, I'm thinking, like, why haven't you tried to replicate this, right? Even with, I don't know, with
my
some
thing is like,
volunteers or something. I don't know, like, you know what I'm
you
saying?
mean to tell me you got to kill her to get that piece of her, I guess, stem of her brain, where it's sending this signal? You can't just. I mean, there's brain surgery happening all the time these days.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me the only way of doing it is to kill her, crack open her skull, remove her brain, and then make something out of her brain? Go fuck yourself.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. It's pretty nuts. But it actually made me think, right? Her trying to convince Joel, and I totally see her point too, man. But I totally see his point as well, especially being a parent. You're absolutely right. Like, hell no, like everybody can die.
Yeah.
So we jump to the end scene, right? Where they're almost at Tommy's, and Joel is talking his ass off about Sarah, like nonstop, and what a
Just comparing the two and how they're going to be best friends, and if they were still around or Sarah was still around, how there's different but the same. He won't shut up about Sarah now. Where before is like, that's a topic we're never going to discuss. That and Tess. But now, just blabbing away. Because you know what he is? He's that guilty kid that's trying to get good with his parents. Hey, I'll do the chores. I'll do it. You want me to clean it? I'll go take out the trash. Clean the dishes? No problem.
Yeah.
He's just so guilty of what he did that he's trying anything to kind of like make a perfect situation better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And that's what I was talking about, the switch, man. It's just insane how all of what he did, but now he's with the person who he's good with or comfortable with, the person who he loves, and he's just like all chatty. And then Ellie kind of like, breaks the bubble and starts talking about, what happened to Riley. That we all kind of assumed. Obviously, they didn't show it. But that's the first person she had to kill. And she opens up about that. But that was kind of like leading up to the question. Tell me the truth. Was everything you told me about the Fireflies, was it true? Do you swear? And Joel didn't hesitate again. And he says, I swear.
Flat out lie. Flat out lied.
Flat out.
Like looking right into her eyes, flat out lied. Now the only difference I would want to see in that, when she's confessing the Riley killing, they should have had a flashback.
Yeah.
Like them having it, them in that mall. Slowly, you see Riley switching, and then boom, she either shoots her or stabs her in the head.
Yeah.
There's so many places we could add such great content in this episode, and I'm kind of pissed a little bit that they didn't.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I think that another thing is or to talk about, right, is Ellie's perspective, right? Like what's going through her mind, right? And even from the point where she's like, I mean, this all can't be for nothing. Since she was little, she's lived through pain, suffering, obviously in this 9 episodes, she all of what she had to endure and encounter outside of like her killing, seeing people die, and so on. She, on her perspective, I think she would have been more than willing to give up her life, right? To prevent that stuff to continue on happening to her, right? Like, do I have to continue seeing little kids like Sam die, right? Or Henry take his life, or people like Riley, the love of her life, ending it. I think she would have been like, yeah, take me.
Let me ask you this: why do you think she was so skeptical of Joel after he explained the situation? Because he's, to this point, he's never lied to her. So why was she so easily convinced? Because you could see it in her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't believe him.
Right.
So why do you think she's so easily convinced he's lying to her right now?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't think she's convinced that he's not lying. I think that she believed him. Because like you were just saying, like Joel hasn't lied to her. But I just feel like she's sad and thinking about this because of the what if. I think she really thought she was gonna be the solution for the whole world. Just kind of like when she tried to cure Sam, right, with her blood.
Yeah.
I think she honestly believed, like, man, like this is gonna be the end of it. I'm the answer, and not an ego thing, but like this is over, right? This whole infection thing, this whole death, everything is over, and it's not. So how depressing is that, right?
Yeah.
To know that the world can potentially change, and it just doesn't, and you're just gonna have to deal with it for the rest of your life. So honestly, I don't think she. I think she believed them. I just think she's pretty depressed about that. And obviously, when she finds out, she's probably even going to be more depressed and upset. But what makes you think, though, that she doesn't believe him?
I think the way she looks at him, because every time he's explaining something, she's like, there's these long stares at Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, like, is there more? Is there more that you're not telling me? Like she keeps looking at him in a certain way, and everyone's gotten that look from an ex-girlfriend, a wife, something. When you're like trying to like hide something, you're like, is that the truth? Like she wants to believe him. She truly wants to believe him. But a little part of her in the back of her head is saying something's up.
Yeah.
Something's weird, something's up. But like, when you're watching the scene, there's nothing he's saying that could be considered a lie. It could be true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, the only thing that I saw skepticism in is the fact that she was still in her hospital gown, no backpack. So all her stuff that she's had, the pun book, all her little personal stuff that she like found, and her gun that she loves so much now, it's not with her anymore. He never grabbed her bag, so I think the abruptness of why everything happened and why she's in the car now is a huge indication that something's up.
Yeah. And that's why I think the knife will play a part, because how come he has the knife but nothing else, right? But then now that you were saying that, it makes sense now, because she trusts him, she believes him, but now, and to what I was saying before, like she is almost becoming him, and a good, clear line indication right there is when they're going to the hospital, and he's like, okay, so now, and then she cuts him off and says like, we're gonna cut through that building, we're gonna go up, find a way or whatever, and then he's like, no, I have a stick of dynamite, but
Yeah.
the point that I'm trying to make is that she knew the plan already. Like, she's learned like 1,000% all of Joel's moves, right?
Yeah.
She's been observing, she's been listening, so yeah, it is very possible that now that she's asking him a true question, she's reading through his bullshit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have the feeling that maybe she does believe him, but she's just sad that the world will continue to be shit, and not prosper like
Well, I mean,
like
just
she thought.
look at Joel's demeanor throughout this whole episode.
Yeah,
She's known Joel as being standoffish, slowly. Yeah, he's let her in slowly and slowly, but he does a full throttle of emotion. Like he's gonna give her everything now. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. You ask me, I'll tell you. Whatever it is, whatever you want to hear, I'll tell you the truth. And then just the whole episode kind of paints him as someone that he hasn't been throughout the whole run of this series.
yeah,
And I think that added to the skepticism in her head.
yeah. It's pretty nuts, man. Um, and then the whole question still remains, right? So, would you do it? Would you not? You told us, but so this is just a matter of perspective, man. Like, so if you love, you don't go through with it, but if it's somebody else, you go through it.
Bro,
It's just interesting, right? It's
if you told me my dog had the cure and I love my dog, you're not killing my dog.
yeah,
That's just my mindset.
yeah, yeah,
I'm like, go fuck yourself. Go find a different way.
yeah, yeah, man. It's pretty crazy. After
Now, I mean, now that I think about it, why hasn't Marlene told these doctors how it might have happened? If she was there at birth, right? That as my friend is 9 months pregnant, about in full labor, water breaking, head crowning, she gets bit. Go mimic that with someone else.
yeah,
You've done worse things to people in this world. You're killing innocent people because they were overwhelmed with people. So they're like, you know what? Dead people can't turn to zombies. So use one of those idiots as a test subject.
yeah.
She knows how it happened, supposedly. So go talk to the doctors about that.
Well, this is, I'm glad you brought that up. And, this is what I was saying. Like, why haven't they replicated this, right? And I think this is one of my theories for season 2 is that they will show us how they unsuccessfully attempted and killed a bunch of pregnant women or something.
Okay.
I think there's gonna be a little, and again, this is fully or for the folks listening, this is not out of the game. This is straight out of my brain.
Well,
So maybe bullshit or not, but
let me first tell you what they're thinking about for season 2. Then we can go into what you think is going to happen.
let's do it.
Because you're not off. You're not off at all. Because season 2 is not going to be part 2 of the game. What they're doing is they're saving part 2 probably not till season 4 or 5, whatever is considered one of the last seasons, is when they'll bring in more aspects of part 2 than we're going to see.
Okay.
What they're going to do in season 3, because the time jump between part 1 and 2 is 5 years, is we're going to get more of Joel and Ellie and their trials and tribulations. Now, what you do see in part 2 is a lot of flashback scenes. I think they're going to touch bases on that. I think we're going to be introduced to Jesse, who's part of the game, and Jesse's girlfriend at the time, who forgot the name, unfortunately. Dina, thank you. Dina at the time.
See,
We're going to see that. We're going to see that relationship. You're going to see the friendship between those three. I think we'll be introduced to Abby, who is the daughter of the doctor that Joel kills. But I don't think we're going to get into the depths of part 2 in season 2. I think you're right. I think we're going to get people pretending some pregnant ladies are test subjects that could play a role. I think we're going to see a lot of Jackson, Wyoming, and their day-to-day life. You'll
Mhm.
see Joel train her in how to become a better hunter, a guitar player. You'll see her art side because she eventually gets this beautiful tattoo to cover up her bite mark so no one else asks about it. And you'll see the Joel and you see Joel and his brother have a closer bond than ever. I think that's where it's going to be, and I think the biggest threats that we're gonna come across in season 2 are the infected
Mhm.
and some of the, I guess, raiders or other groups of people that they might go to war with.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing, right? Like I think the theme of this season was love, and will
Mm,
they switch it up in season 2 to be a little bit more about the infected and gore and whatnot, right? I
right.
think that would be pretty cool. Obviously, we love that genre, so we will definitely eat it up. But yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Now, do you think, and I don't know like what your sources are, right? But do you think that maybe they follow through with some of like part two, of the game, and maybe like you said, not till season 3 or 4. Um,
I think the only part of the game that we'll see in the game, there are certain flashback scenes.
mhm.
Okay. So, like, for example, in the game, this is not spoiling anything for anyone. It's more of a comical flashback scene. You see them go to a park like this, I guess, almost like, um, how can I compare it? Let's say Universal Studios.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's say they go to Universal Studios, but this park is all about dinosaurs and in one aspect. So she sees a T Rex. And in another aspect, they talk about uh, they go to a history museum and they see all the astronauts that have gone to the moon, and touching on base on the conversation that they had in the car once.
Got it.
So you'll see her sitting in a pod of a space shuttle, wearing a helmet. Joel has this tape that he found of recordings of like NASA talking to Houston. Houston, we have an issue. Da da da. Spaceships going up. Stuff like that. Goofy stuff like that embedded in them seeing more infected. I think we're going to be introduced to different types of infected that we
Mhm.
haven't seen, let's
Okay.
say, in the game. And I think some of the biggest, one of the biggest things is we'll probably get introduced to the wolf pack, the WLF.
Mm.
I mean, the beginnings of the wolf pack, who are similar to fireflies but more extreme.
Gotcha. Didn't The
Mm.
Walking Dead have wolves too, or like something like that?
Yes.
But
Mm.
anyway, so how much of a time jump? Because I think in the game is like 5 years. How much of a time jump do you think we'll get?
I think we won't see. I think if they plan on making this a 4 season episode, a year, maybe 2,
Okay.
not more than that. I can't. It won't go past 2 years. I think it's going to be them being acclimated to life in Jackson, Wyoming, with Tommy and that whole group. Her relationships to having a more normal life, having friends, having relationships, and
Yeah.
going from there.
And then what do you think about, something that happened in Game of Thrones, right? Like they caught up to the books and they
Mhm.
finished it, right? Without them having like an ending book or whatever. Like the books are still going on, or hopefully. But do you think that there's a possibility where they catch up to the game and then the writer, because it's the same, the writer for the game is part of this show, right? Is one of the
Mhm.
showrunners. So do you think they'll just start creating new material, or do
I
you think
think,
they'll end it?
let's put it this way. I'm predicting 4 seasons
Okay,
for the whole show. Seasons 2 and 3 will be all new stuff. Season 4 will be part 2 of the game.
gotcha.
That's how I see it. I see them making new stories for the next season and season 3, but touching base with little clues that we got from the game in part 2.
Yeah, and then because if you think about it, man, like and this is like a best case scenario, I guess, for everybody. Because it's almost like every 2 years that we're gonna have a season, right? Or maybe if we push it, right, like every year, or every year and a half. But I think there might be opportunity, man, to probably create a part 3 of the game. And I mean, see, I don't know how part 2 ends, so that's why I'm wondering, right? Because what if, right? Like, what if they make some more content, so that we
It's
all
possible.
go back to play, right? So
what they're coming out with, from what I heard in some of the commentating, is there's gonna be a multiplayer version of Last of Us. Now, I don't know if we're getting new material, old material. I don't know what that is yet.
yeah.
Now, they're looking into Neil Druckmann, the maker of the game, the writer of the game, and the creator of all this. Did not want to chime in on Last of Us Part 3. He's
Okay.
like, well, we'll just see. He just kept saying, we'll just see.
Right.
Now, the way Part 2 ends, plenty of space. No, I'm just saying plenty of space for Part 3.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
But how Part 2 plays out, I think in the show during its final season, they're going to reorganize the order of Part 2.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And part 2 is a long game, so they can probably squeeze a couple of seasons out of that. But
like, in comparison to Part 1, Part 2 is like twice the size of Part 1 easily when you're playing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so very well. So any more notes, thoughts, predictions, theories?
I just hope that when they're creating season 2, they can keep it as interesting as it has been.
Yeah.
Because you're diving into brand new. I think they're going to dive into brand new material, and I just hope it keeps us as impactful as it has been.
Yeah. I think so, man. I think HBO like normally doesn't sign up unless there's like solid writing, right? And I think this is what is going to come out of part 2. I hope they switch it up a little bit, right? Where it's a little bit more action, a little bit more horror. May very well be that they don't, but I'll still watch because I still love this season, man. I mean, thoughts for the whole season. It went too quick. It was so good to me that it went too quick. I honestly can tell you that I don't think there was an episode that I didn't like. Yes, of course, there's room for improvement in certain things per my taste, of course, right? Your taste as well. And there's some things that I would have loved to see. But overall, man, I'm very satisfied. I'm very, very satisfied. By far, if I do it as a season 1 standalone, one of my favorite shows ever, right?
I think in comparison to everything that's ever been made in regards to game to theater or game to TV screen, this blows everything out of the water.
Oh yeah.
Nothing has been this good in adaptation from a video game that I've ever seen. I mean, nothing comes even second. This takes first, second, and third prize.
Yeah, 1,000% agree with you. But even as a standalone, right? Like even as a standalone show, even if it was not a video game or whatever, it was still pretty fucking badass, bro. It was so badass.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like I've seen storylines in video games be so good, but when it gets switched over to TV or movie, they just shit the bed. I hate Uncharted.
Yeah.
The video game story is amazing, and they fucked it up.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing, right? Like, if they would have made The Last of Us an action show, would it be the same thing, right? And I know that that's what we want. I know that you and I want that horror action shit, right? Killing zombies. That's what the game was about a lot of the times.
You just said you want horror action.
Yes. Yes. Nice.
I like it horror.
I like the horror. But you know, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, so I think it would have probably changed the game. Like, I mean, the show. Like, if they would have made it like the movie Uncharted, because that was like straight up just action. Like, no, and cheesy action at that, like some Fast and the Furious type action, right?
Yeah.
Like that exaggerated like fantasy action.
It's all about family.
Where I thought it was like an okay watch, but yeah, they didn't represent the game very well. So I'm afraid that if The Last of Us did that, it wouldn't have been the successful show that it is right now, because it got more people watching, man. They got people that are not a fan of the genre there on a Sunday night waiting for the episode, right? So, and before, we closed, you said there was a bonus episode, or there might be?
There wasn't. It was just they were talking about the setup for season 2.
Okay.
And it was more of a backdrop to the whole season 1 and the setup, what they're thinking about for season 2. But to your point, I hope season 2 scares us a little bit.
Yeah.
To the point where I wanted them to scare us like how the first Resident Evil game scared us when we played it.
Oh,
You're like, man, it's fucking dark around here. Something bad's gonna happen.
Yes.
You want that long, eerie feeling. Like, okay, what's gonna pop up at me?
Yeah.
What's going on right now? And I hope there's more of that. But to get that effect, we need to see the light and the darkness of it.
Yeah. And maybe that's what the formula is gonna be, man. I mean, I'm just wishful thinking here, but maybe the formula is giving us gory games. And stories for the shows. I don't know.
For an HBO show, this was not gory at all.
No, not at all. I mean, we saw clickers once, right? I mean, obviously, like up close.
You don't see. Okay, you look at Game of Thrones, House of Dragons. Just in those two in comparison, you saw people's heads getting smushed and brains everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro Pascal. I mean, like when Pedro Pascal faced the mountain in Game of Thrones, he smushed his brains, and you saw the brains everywhere.
Yes.
Now you look at this show, Last of Us. When someone's getting shot, the camera's going away.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I need more rated R Last of Us season 2.
I agree, damn it. But all right, I think we're good, right?
Yep.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for staying with us for an hour and some change, talking about the season finale of The Last of Us, or look for the light. So thank you so much for staying with us on this 9-episode journey. Up next, I think we're going to talk a little bit about The Mandalorian and some of the upcoming movies. I think we have Mario Brothers coming up. We have a bunch of stuff. Yeah, we have Shazam. And we'll definitely find, some Star Wars there to talk about. We'll talk about it all. But yeah, it was a fun. Let's put these. Is this a fly in my basement? Jesus! I need to go to bed.
This is a way to end the show right there as he's fly swatting people.
Shit. That's right. But thank you so much for staying with us. Please like, comment, share, and all the above. J-Mo, it was a pleasure. And then next Mandalorian, man.
For sure. See you guys next time.
Bye.